I'm here with Josh for another episode of Cold Email Breakdown. And for anyone who's never watched this before, this is just a conversation between myself and Josh where we cover things in cold email that beginners often get confused about. We give our opinions on them. And before we get into the episode, I'll introduce myself for anyone who's never watched this before. My name's George. I'm the founder of Email Chaser, which is a cold email sending platform. And Josh, if you don't mind also introducing yourself.
Hi, I'm Josh Michaels, the founder of Three Red Boxes, a outreach and deliverability email agency.
So usually in these episodes, we just go over a bunch of different topics about cold email. So I have a list of things here, which I thought we might go through today. Um, so the first topic, which I thought we cover, is sort of volume. If you're working on a new campaign, for example, yeah, how many emails do you think you would typically send in an average campaign? So let's say you have a new client, for example, and they want to sell their product or service. How many emails do you think you need to send to be able to gauge if there's traction and if it's a good idea?
I think it depends a little bit on the industry. What's interesting is I actually just had this conversation with a client, not to call him out or anything this morning. And he was looking to take what we have already, and I know it's a little bit different, and scale it because that they're running pretty small. And his, I had wanted to step back with him, and I said that my first step is to take what we have at that smaller scale and make it be the best that we can, right? Because the end goal is to drive as much revenue as we can. So rather than saying I sent 1,000 emails, I got 100 meetings, if I send 5,000, I'll get 500. Let's try to squeeze as much as we can out of that 1,000 instead. I do think that you have to send probably 1,000 emails to get any real idea of what's going on. I think people that try to send 10 or even 100, I think you're guessing a little bit based on what's going on. You could have a really good section of your list. You could have a mediocre section of your list. Your content cannot quite be dialed in. I mean, as you know, George, we've all played with content endlessly on campaigns. And your first guess usually is not what is what you end up with months later. So I would say you probably need to send a ballpark of 1,000 emails to get any real stats that I can sit back and really trust. I mean, I've seen open rates flip flop pretty fast from day one. I started at 25% and we're only sending, let's say 100 a day. And by day 10, that 25 is up to 35, 40, 45%, just because we might have started with a bad part of the list. The mailboxes might not quite have been as ready to really send that kind of volume. So I would definitely say a good ballpark number is 1,000 emails sent to start really analyzing your data.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Because the thing is, if you send 100 emails and you get one or two really good replies, you still don't really know if was that luck or is that consistent and is it going to continue at that rate? So when you get to 1,000, there's no doubt really, 1,000 is enough data to really know for sure. I'm actually running a couple campaigns right now because I'm testing Email Chaser's new in-house double verification system. And I'm not sharing my screen, but I'm just going to open up a campaign on my end just to look at the stats quickly. But I'm doing something similar to what you said. I'm contacting about 1,000 people in each campaign. In one of the campaigns so far, it's contacted 726 people and it only has 2 bounces. So yeah, that's kind of a good, yeah, you're contacting around 1,000 people. That gives you a clear idea of is this data sort of reliable? And yeah, so far in this campaign, 726 people have been contacted, only 2 have bounced. So it's effectively a 0% bounce rate, basically. But if I was doing the same test and I only contacted 50 or 100 people, I wouldn't be as confident with the results because it's just not a big enough data set.
Yeah, I mean, when you get 2 bounces out of close to 1,000, if you send it at 100 at a time, the first 100 might get all 2 and the next 900 get none, or they could be, interspersed between those 1,000 somewhere. You don't really know. So like you said, you could have sent the first 300 and gotten literally 0 and come on there and said, I got absolutely 0, and then sent another 300 and got 2. So,
Exactly.
you definitely need to get some kind of volume through there. I think 1,000 is a good starting point to know what's going on.
So another sort of topic here I have is sort of around the whole idea of company name formatting. So a lot of people, when they're building their lead list for their cold email campaigns, they'll extract their leads from a place like Apollo or LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and then they have this list of leads and the companies that those leads work at. And often those leads that they have, the formatting of the data in the CSV file, for example, isn't great. So the company name might say something like company name LLC or something like that, which you obviously don't want to insert that into your email because it looks templated. Do you have any sort of processes that you typically run when you're building lead lists for formatting these company names the right way, or how do you sort of approach that?
Well, it's a little bit tricky because I actually like to score the companies first before I really look at leads. So I like to filter out the companies that don't actually line up to the ICP, which can be difficult manually. We are working on some solutions for that. Hopefully, they'll be out soon. But honestly, as far as formatting goes, I've definitely seen what you're talking about. I've seen it in first names also, where a name can get messed up depending on how it's in the database. A lot of the times I'll scroll through the list. If I'm seeing places that have issues, I actually have AI already written basically for that. And I will send the list through them. And I've already kind of told it what I'm looking for as far as names, proper company names, proper this. And I will, even when that's done, I will scroll through the list fairly quickly. And if I honestly see stuff out of place, I mean, fix it manually at that point. I mean, there's not much else you can do. But I do have some AI written for myself that's already recorded with what I'm looking for. And I will upload the CSV and I will tell it to look at first name, last name, company name, any fields I'm going to use in the email itself. I will tell it to look at and just make sure that there's no extra characters. You can put in all of the symbol characters and tell it if any of these are in there, please get rid of them, which you'll find sometimes. I saw first names the other day with a pound symbol in them. It just kind of happens in these databases. So I would say if you hygiene them, it should fix the emails if anybody has any problems. And then I use AI to fix first name and company name.
Yeah, I mean, I would think this is obvious to anyone watching this since we're sort of midway through 2025 at this point. But for anyone who's not aware, you can upload CSV files to ChatGPT and ask it to sort of clean the data in the file, for example. So yeah, if all the company names are incorrect, you can just sort of ask it to rephrase them so that they sort of remove things that shouldn't be there, like LLC or whatever. So that's really easy way of doing it. But there's other ways as well.
Yeah, and I will definitely train it. I'll actually take like 25 to 50 names that I know are not correct, and I will give it those first and see what it does. And then when it doesn't get them right, I will slowly start to train it to tell it what I'm looking for based on those different instances. And it's at the point now where it probably catches 98, 99% of them. It's pretty good. I mean, it's never going to be 100%, but it's pretty good.
You touched on something a couple minutes ago about you look at the company first to decide if the company's actually a good fit, and then you sort of look into the people of the company. Um, do you have any tips on how to determine if a company in your lead list is a good fit for what you're selling? Like, are there any sort of key things that you like to look at? I know you're also building a product around this, but maybe for people watching this, like, are there any kind of general principles that you can kind of share that would be helpful?
Well, number one, just to back up a little bit, I've learned that I would rather work from a company list first than just downloading the people. And I know in Sales Navigator that can be difficult. In some of these platforms that's difficult. But even when I get a list from Sales Navigator, a lot of the times I'll just take the email and just use the domain itself because I want to verify that the company that I'm sending to is the right company. It could be the right person. If I'm trying to find every head of marketing, VP of marketing out there, George could be, or let's say CEOs or founders. George is a CEO and founder, but it could be the wrong company that I'm emailing. So just because it's the right job title and the right person, the right job title, doesn't mean that Email Chaser is interested in, you know, customized socks or, whatever it is that you're trying to do. So I try to score the companies. Like I said, it's a difficult process. You know, You would almost have to manually go website by website by website to see if they match. There is no really good way. That's why we started developing something ourselves. I think it's incredibly important in 2025 to not be emailing the wrong companies. One, you end up paying for hygiene, you end up paying for lists of the wrong people. Then you end up hygiening and paying again for the wrong people. So you're double, triple paying for someone who shouldn't even be on your list. And then you're emailing them, and you're more likely to get ignored or a spam complaint when it's just literally the wrong company. And a lot of these databases, they're pulling based on keywords. So, you're looking for, you want to do outreach to people that do pool service or pool maintenance or pool cleaning. Well, if in their database or their website, when you put those keywords in search, if somebody has the word pool in it, you're going to get that company, even if they're installation of pools or they own, a local pool. You're going to get those people in your list that aren't even right. So I'm sorry that there is no easy answer for how to kind of score them. You can train some AI. That's been our biggest task is training the AI properly to know what to look for, know which pages to search. But it's why we've been developing it for a couple months, hopefully getting closer. But I do think it's extremely important to figure out some way of scoring these leads. There is no system that I've seen where you export a list of leads, and it's honestly, I've not seen one better than 75% accurate in the testing that I've done. Sales Navigator, Apollo, Clay, all of them. And I'm not trying to knock them in any way. They give great lists. They're a great resource. But if 25% of your list is the wrong company, now you're emailing 25% of your list is the wrong company. So if you sent 10,000 emails and 2,500 of them are wrong, your open rates are going to drop, your reply rates are going to drop, your conversion rates are going to drop, and eventually your deliverability is going to drop because of it. So there is no really simple way to score them. I mean, you could almost look at these companies kind of one by one. You can look at their domains. That's kind of what we're doing, except we're building it into an actual automation and flow to literally score them one by one by one, and then spit you out a good list, a bad list, and you go from there.
Yeah, and just for anyone watching who's never done cold email before, just to give you a little bit more context about what we're talking about here, if you use a tool like LinkedIn Sales Navigator, for example, to find a list of people that might be interested in your product service, you can use filters in Sales Navigator. For example, they have an industry filter. You can search for people by industry, but those filters are not really that accurate, as Josh just said. So that's sort of what Josh is talking about here. You can make these lists and these tools, but the lists that they give you are not going to be 100% accurate. And as he just described, that then has all these other issues related. I think it also depends probably on exactly what you're selling, because let's say you're selling something to restaurants, for example, it's probably a lot easier to build a great list of relevant restaurants because you can use a scraper, for example, to scrape Google Maps, and then you can filter by the number of reviews they have. Maybe you only want to target restaurants that have at least 50 reviews with an average score of above 4, 3 out of 5 or above. So you can do things like that to sort of get rid of the bad candidates. But when you're using something like Apollo or LinkedIn Sales Navigator, it's sometimes more difficult because there isn't anything that's that specific. It's a little bit more generic. So I guess that's what Josh is also saying is, trying to score them one by one. Sometimes is the best way.
I also I also think it's incredibly important to be as narrow as possible. Like looking at George's example of restaurants, don't just pull all the restaurants. If let's say you're local and you want to just pull all the restaurants in New York City, you're going to get a pretty large list. And your emails, even though you're emailing restaurants, let's say you sell, dinnerware, plates, whatever, commercially, and that's your goal, you can't really personalize that email. So yes, you can pull all the restaurants. Yes, you can be somewhat accurate with that with a, Google My Business or Google Maps scraping, and you can use that. But if you can pull the reviews, now you can narrow it down a little bit better for yourself and target the better ones. And you can also narrow it down by the kind of restaurant it is. The more, instead of just getting 50,000 restaurants and trying to blanket email all of them, try to get 50 different lists of 1,000 each or 25 lists of 2,500 each, and do the ones that are all 5-star and all pizza restaurants. or all Chinese restaurants, the different kinds. And also you can get smaller ones and larger ones. That way, when you write your content, you can identify them. You can say, we see you are a 5-star restaurant, going really well, or, they're, if you can find their pricing in that also, that can help. Or if you know the style that they are, it helps. The more personalized you can make the email, knowing who they are shows you put the work and energy into it. We do dinnerware for all pizza restaurants. Just by saying that, they know you put some energy and effort into it and not just saying restaurants. We love to work with 5-star restaurants because of this. Well, they're a 5-star restaurant, or 4-star and up restaurants. So try to make the lists. I always say as small as you can, shoot for 1,000 leads versus 25,000 leads. Doesn't mean you can't send 25,000 different contacts. It just means it's 10, 20, 30 different lists.
Yeah, I think just to even expand further on this topic, one of the biggest mistakes I think that people make when they're doing outreach, whether it's cold email or even anything really, they're wasting so much time and capacity on companies that are just never going to convert. Like if there's a restaurant that has 3 reviews on Google Business and those reviews are also terrible, that restaurant is not a real business, and they're not going to convert into some kind of high paying customer for whatever you're selling. So it's better you just completely get rid of them. You never even waste your time on them in the first place. And on LinkedIn Sales Navigator, for example, there's another similar situation where if you find a list of people on Sales Navigator, maybe 50% of those people are just time wasters. They're not real businesses. They're sort of maybe random individuals. They might not even have a professional email address, and they're never going to spend the money in the first place. So you shouldn't even contact them. So if you use something basic like, a company headcount filter, which Sales Navigator provides, you can only target people that have, let's say at least 10 people in the company, for example. Well, if you're reaching out to owners or companies and all those companies have at least 10 or more people, on average, they're going to be more likely to have a professional email account. They're more likely to respond to you. They're more likely to actually be interested in what you're selling because they have a real business. So these are the sort of things to think about, which a lot of beginners they just kind of ignore.
Yeah, you really want to spend most of the time I spend on these campaigns now is on building these ideal customer profiles and personas and knowing who I'm targeting and why I'm targeting them. And I try to turn the whole thing around as if I'm the consumer, right? I'm the contact that you're emailing. And what do I want to see in that email? How do I reverse engineer this whole thing? Right? Again, if you're going to all the restaurants and you sell, dinnerware and tablecloths in China and stuff like that, being able to one, narrow it down by city, narrow it down by neighborhood, narrow it down by how many reviews they have. If they don't have X amount of reviews, like George said, it's not a bad thing to not have reviews, but if they have a bunch of negative reviews and that's all they have, they probably don't care that much about their company, right? They're not paying attention. So are they really going to spend more money to upgrade their silverware if they're not worried about having a bunch of really bad reviews?
They have rats in the toilets, but you're trying to sell them silverware. It's probably not going to work out.
Right. So unless you're selling Google reviews, I mean, maybe that be, maybe you do the opposite for those people that sell Google reviews. You go find people that only have bad reviews, but be as specific as possible. Get as small. I would honestly rather send to a list of 200 people than 25,000 because I can personalize those emails to no end. And I don't mean when you use the filters to scrape, AI to scrape the person's last post on LinkedIn and say, "Hey George, I see you're interested in email because you," I mean actually personalize it. Take the time to know they are a pizza restaurant in New York City that has 4.5-star reviews. That's the kind of stuff that helps. It shows that you put the time, the energy into it, and you can use all of that in a very soft, conversational way when you're talking to them. Instead of just sticking in, "Hello, company name. We can help company name by doing this." You can be a lot more specific, and it works with me when I get those emails. And I know it works with clients in context. I've been sending millions of emails over the years. And the more personalized you can make it, the better.
Yeah, and a small example that just on this topic of personalizing to restaurants, I read somewhere that you could, for example, scrape the restaurant's menu from their website, so you can automate this obviously using AI and scrapers. And you can sort of mention something in the PS line about a specific item they have on their menu. So you can say something like, at the end of your email, PS, next time I'm in New York, I want to try the whatever, uh, whatever pizza that their specialty is, for example. So it just seems a little bit more personalized, even if it's obviously AI generated.
Yeah, it helps. It also helps to have some humor in there, to make somebody laugh a little bit. You stand out. I'm from Chicago originally. I eat Chicago pizza. I don't like New York pizza. No offense to you guys. So if I was writing to New York restaurants, I might put something in there in the PS say, "Hey, I'm a Chicago pizza guy. Next time I'm in New York, we can argue about which one's better." You know what I mean, kind of thing. But you want to stand out in some way, right? It's not just about comedy. But if you could make somebody laugh, that means they read your email. That means they had a response. That means they are more likely to be like, oh, the person took the time to know where my restaurant is, who we are, what's going on. It shows effort. I give this example. I know we talk about this a little bit. I've worked with some real estate companies, and there's one, it's in commercial real estate, which I'll be honest, a little bit easier. But we email the owner of the building and we'll say, George, we know you own 123 High Street. Would you be interested in working with us in a sale or a deal? We have investors, we have this. I'm telling George, I know he owns this building, which shows that I put the effort in, rather than some of the other clients that I've had where, we've all got those, they buy houses for cash, right? We'll buy your house for cash, no inspection, no work, no nothing. Here's your cash. Well, those always sound a bit scammy, right? You get those phone calls, you get those texts, you get those emails. I'm not saying they are scams, but it sounds that way. Versus if I can say, hey, George, I know you own 123 High Street. It's been on the market for 107 days. I see you're struggling to sell it. Is there a way we can work something out? We can help you get it sold. Maybe you want to get it off the market, get your money out of it and be done, rather than a blanket email of we buy homes for cash, no inspection needed, right? It shows the work. It shows trust, right? And he knows that I know which building he not only owns it, but that it's been on the market for a while and I'm helping him solve a problem, right? That can help him. So you got to think about, maybe you don't hit a person trying to buy it for cash on day 3 because they probably think they're going to get more money for their house than what it's worth still. After 100 days, been sitting on the market, maybe they're now worried about actually selling it and they just need to get rid of it and they don't want to deal with it anymore. So think about how you can best approach whatever your industry is in those same ways and be as narrow and as personal as possible. In the old days of just buying these large lists and throwing spaghetti against the wall and hoping it sticks, it just doesn't work. They just don't work at all. It's not sustainable.
Yeah, one thing I think we should make clear as well to anyone who's a beginner watching this is that everything we're saying right now related to personalization or making your email seem so relevant, it's all important, but this is the cherry on top. This is not the foundation. This is just the extra cherry to optimize your reply rate. What really matters is what you're actually selling, what you're saying. So like never lose sight of that, because if you're selling, I don't know, something that no one really cares about, it doesn't really matter what kind of personalization you do or what kind of relevance you try to add. They're still not going to reply to you in most cases. So think about this relevance of personalization as sort of the cherry on top, but never forget that the foundation is always what you're actually saying, what the offer is, and do people even care? Because if they don't care, nothing else is going to fix it.
Yeah, and for those just starting, start small. Right? Don't day one go into Apollo or Sales Navigator or whatever you use and download 100,000 leads.
Yeah.
Right? Don't be one. Go find 100. Right? Yeah, we're kind of saying you need 1,000 to get some real stats to know what's going on, but download 100, download 500, download 1,000.
One reply. Get a reply. Yeah.
And play around with it and see how it goes. But if you concentrate and say, okay, I want to cherry pick and start the best way possible, spend a little bit of extra time when you download that list, right? Put in the right keywords that you're looking for, put in the right industry, put in the right job titles, put in the right information to try to make that list as good as you can. So you're starting from the best point possible, right? You don't want to start emailing from a system that's going to spam on day 1, right? And you don't want to email people that aren't interested on day one. You want to give yourself the best chance possible. So it is kind of the cherry on top at scale, but also for people just starting, take your time a little bit. Look at those different, if you've not used those systems before and you don't really know them, look at what the different drop downs do. Look at the different options that are there. Test out the industry, see which ones make more sense for you. Maybe download a list of just 50 of them. And literally, you can take the time to go through 50 websites if you want to see how accurate it is. Obviously, at 1,000, at 20,000, you don't have the time to sit there and look at 20,000 different websites, but 50 you could get an idea of how accurate this is and just start small and build from there is the best way. Build your foundation first and make sure it's working and then scale it.
Yeah. I think a closing thing I just want to mention on this is don't let the hype on LinkedIn and Twitter make you think that you have to send a million cold emails per month to get results. That's what gets the views and the clicks online. But in reality, the smaller, more targeted lead lists often get more replies and actually generate more revenue for companies. So you do not need to send a million emails per month. I'm not saying that cannot work, but that's not necessarily the only strategy. You can have targeted lead lists going after really specific people and get great results. So we've been talking for a while. I think we should wrap this up. And just before we go, though, if someone's watching this and they have a business, they want to get new customers, new clients for their business through cold email outreach, but they don't really know how to do it, or they don't have time to learn all this stuff. They want to hire someone like you to, your company to do this for them. Where can they find you, and where can they contact you?
Yeah, George, I appreciate it. You can go to 3redboxes.com. You can see everything that we offer there. There is a sign-up form that goes directly to me. So you'll be working with me directly. If you just have some questions, feel free to fill it out. We could jump on a quick 15, 30-minute call, no cost, and just talk about what you're trying to do. I could try to get you in the right direction, let you know, how to do some of this stuff. I'm more than happy to help you. Just go to the website, 3redboxes.com. You can also go to my LinkedIn, check it out, see what's going on, and more than happy to help.
I'll be adding your LinkedIn and my LinkedIn to the description of this YouTube video so people can find it there as well. Well, thanks for joining me. I'll see you next week, and have a great day.
Peace, bud.